All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome to another expert session number 110. Wow. Today we're going to speak about AI, preventive diagnostics, and the consumerization of health. First and foremost, I want to say thanks to our sponsors, VTEX, AirMeet, and Acclaimed. And so, what is Evolve? Evolve is a global private network and operating layer connecting senior commerce leaders, advisors, founders, investors, and operators across markets. These sessions are designed to surface operational realities, market shifts, and strategic patterns shaping commerce globally, often before they become obvious in a mainstream industry conversation. Our expert today, Mayra Hurtado, Mexican executive based in Singapore for the past 18 years, former Adidas Southeast Asia leader with more than a decade operating across GTM operations, regional growth, and consumer strategy across Southeast Asia and Pacific market. Today, she is co-founder of Hormony, an AI-powered hormone diagnostics platform focused on at-home saliva testing, preventive health, hormonal insights, longevity, AI-driven personalization. And the company is already distributed through pharmacy channels in Hong Kong. Her perspective sits at the intersection of commerce, health tech, AI, retail distribution, consumer behavior, and entrepreneurship across Asia. And my co-host is Nichole Allen, former White House. Oh, something happened here. So something stuff that happens live. Sorry. Uh, she's a former White House communication strategist, specialized in global comms, crisis management, strategic positioning, executive messaging. She just joined Evolve. So just for context, healthcare is quietly becoming a consumer product category. Consumers increasingly expect real-time health visibility, personalized diagnostics, AI-driven recommendations, and home-based testing instead of reactive healthcare systems, annual checkups, institution-led access points. And that shift is creating new opportunities across pharmacies, insurance, health tech, longevity, AI, and preventive diagnostics. So that's what we're going to explore. Mayra, I always start these sessions with a controversial opening question. And the controversial, not sure if it's controversial, but the different question for you is, are we witnessing the consumerization of healthcare or the failure of traditional healthcare systems to adapt to modern consumer behavior?
I think that's a great question. Um, I think maybe it's a bit of both, and I think it's a good thing, to be honest. And I like to put it as a reference. 20 years ago, an industry like finance, completely taken over by big industries, big banks, big institutions, very regularized, very hard to crack in. And then we got access to all of this tech and a lot of very good prepared people that come in and disrupt the industry. And boom, we have fintech. Huge industry 20 years later. I think we see a very similar process happening with women's health with what we call femtech. We see that it's about the same size that fintech was 20 years, but the big same status, very regulated, very much taken over by big industry. And the fantastic thing about it is that actually the consumer base is a lot bigger. So naturally, you will have a lot of people that are very capable and very prepared, like some of you were saying in this call, that want to do something better and actually have the know-how on how to do it. And this is fantastic because it brings so many opportunities for humanity. So long-winded answer, but I hope it makes sense.
It does make sense. Before we speak about why and what the problem that you guys are striving to solve, and uh, I think when we spoke, I mentioned this is a category defining product. It's really interesting. Like in our community, we have a lot of people in a career transition, and I would like to explore what was that transition like? So you spent many years at Adidas, and then you went about go becoming an entrepreneur. So if we could talk about that, because we have a lot of that type of people in our community, so they don't know whether they're going to invest, whether they, how they build a portfolio career. Um, yeah, I would like to explore a little bit of that transition period. What was that like? How did you, decide that you were going to become an entrepreneur? What did you learn in Adidas as well? So if we could start there.
Sure. And first of all, to anyone that is looking into a big transition, kudos. It's a huge decision to make, especially when you have a family or when you have a very important career that you have built over many years. I think once you have that bug, it's really difficult to shake it off. So it's really worth exploring. I know it's a huge commitment and it's a huge risk. Me personally, to be honest, I didn't really think about it too much. I kind of just jumped into the opportunity when it came, and I was at a point in life where everything was kind of connecting. So to be very honest, I did not think about it. I don't know. If, maybe if I would have had a time to think about it, I would have not done it because it's very scary. Thinking back, and it's been a few very let's say I don't want to say challenging, but years of a lot of changes and a lot of decision making, and yeah, having to really reframe who I am and what I wanted to do. And it has been a process, and it has not been easy, I can say that. But at the end of the day, what made a big difference for me is that one, it was something that I felt that could have an impact in my society. And the second thing is, if I look back, I could see that all the things that I've done in my career really kind of pointed in this direction. I had learned and I had gained the skills over time that would enable me to do it. So I think to all those persons that are thinking about a big move, I would do an inventory of the skill sets of their career. And many of you, they're very far off in your careers, and I'm sure you have learned so much that is pointing you in this direction. So I would say make an inventory of it, make an inventory of what you don't have, and there's other people that can complement that side that you're missing.
That's great advice. Nichole, you also went through a career transition, like had I don't know if it was a stable job, but at least it was a very high level position at the White House, and then you decided to to come to Denmark, right? To move to Denmark. And so
Sometimes you
perhaps,
just jump in.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
So
it. Just jump in.
Yeah.
so yeah, go ahead.
No, please. I'll let you finish your question.
No. It's not really a question, but it's more like I like you to share your perspective, and perhaps you ask Mayra a question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, it's really exciting to be here and be part of the community as one of the newer members. And Myra, I jumped at the opportunity to co-host this one because I feel so fortunate to be a woman alive in this time period. Because if I think about what my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and all of the mothers before me went through, through middle life and perimenopause and menopause, it was a taboo. It wasn't something people talked about, even though it impacts pretty much everybody knows a woman, right? And so it impacts so many people, and there's such an untapped market. And I'm so looking forward to hearing more about your journey as well. And I think it was really brave. And as Carlos was saying, yeah, I made my transition. I had spent 15 years in Washington, D.C., mostly with the Department of State and the Foreign Ministry, but doing a lot of White House work as well. But sometimes you just know when there's time for a change, right? And for me, Denmark had always been the draw, and so I jumped in as best I could, my feet into the cold waters here, and it's been really great so far. And I'm looking forward to continuing to build my community and my network here. But it does lead me back to a question for you, Myra, which is, you had these experiences operating inside of larger organizations. You were mentioning, an inventory of a skill set as a good sort of recommendation to people looking to make a change. And I completely agree with you. I'm wondering, are there other specific skills that you were developing through Adidas and other organizations that you were part of that were maybe sort of larger that became really useful for you as you became an entrepreneur and a founder? Like what do you kind of look back on and say, "Oh, that really, really served me well in this new journey?"
That's a great question. I had to think a little bit about it. I think first, a really important skill that I found especially useful as an entrepreneur is finances. I think very few of us get the opportunity to get trained on it, and is really the basic of building a plan. So when we built our business plan many years ago, we start with the finances to understand if this was something that we could sustain and how much would that take. And the second thing is consumer behavior. So a lot of the work we did in Adidas was understand what their consumer trends were at the moment and what was coming. Anything from what were the questions being asked by the consumer to accessibility of screens. We said that some people, many of us have even more than two screens at all times. So understanding where the consumer is at and how we could address them. And this leads me back to something that you said at the beginning. We're at a very interesting point of time where there's a lot more women in positions of decision making. There is this big transfer of wealth as well, where they said that many women are going to receive a double inheritance. I know it's not a very nice thing to say, but they're going to have their inheritance of their parents and unfortunately of their husbands as well, or their partners. Plus, in the US, for example, they're 40% or more, almost 50% of the business owners. So like you said, I agree. I feel very, very lucky that we're at this point of time where we have the technology, we have the people that understand the technology, that understands the consumer from firsthand, and also have the power to make decisions about how do we build these solutions.
Yeah. I think there's a market shift, right? It feels like there's an opening that wasn't there even 5 or 10 years ago for us to have these
Exactly.
conversations about these topics, about these issues that a lot of people consider very intimate, but at the end of the day, they're part of the human experience. And
That's
so
it.
the fact that we're able to put these into market is really exciting to me and gives me a lot of hope, actually.
Absolutely. I think we're at a time where we should be very excited about the technology, but the people behind that, most of all.
Mayra, my follow-up question, based on following what Nichole is asking you, is so you left you know, a fast-paced structured company. Adidas is a structured company, and so we're building Evolve. So Evolve started as a community. We were focusing on vendors. It's just Gustavo and I. So while I agree with you, like that the financial education is super important. I think there's a fine line between being you know, understanding finance, being slightly delusional, because then you can also you know, look for like we want to build an orchestration layer and the reference platform for senior talent. Maybe it's delusional and we have no investments from outside, so we're building this slowly and, you know, organically and so on. So tell me a bit about your first year process. Like, you left a super stable company, or at least a well-known logo, to build Hormony. So that leap, I find it very interesting. And then how do you go about, you know, this is, we can argue it's a startup or a scale up, you know, whatever stage you guys are in, but still it's not the same as being at Adidas and being
Unilever.
known as Mayra, or Mayra from Adidas. Now you're Mayra, co-founder, Hormony, right? So not sure if I'm
You
if
make
my
total
question is
sense.
clear, you know, so go ahead.
Yes. And I think that last point is a really interesting point, and I'm going to go more into the soft side of entrepreneurship. I think when you're part of a bigger company, aside from the infrastructure and the budget and getting your salary paid every month, which is fantastic, there is this other component of being in a big brand for so many years that sometimes is the hardest part to drop or to let go of, which is Mayra from Adidas. Because you have that stamp of approval, it's a cool brand. Wherever you go, everybody has a question to ask. And it's nice. It's really nice to have that team and that brand and that gravitas behind it. And I think big part of entrepreneurship, and I would love to hear your point of view on this, is deconstructing who you are so you can construct something after that, something totally different. Because yes, you have all the skill set and all the learnings from being in a bigger company, but if I wouldn't have let go of that big brand, it would have been really difficult to uh, even having to go through when there's no financing, when you have to not spend the amount of money you spent before personally, or when you have to um, not rely on the lawyers of the big company and you have to find your own lawyers.
Hmm.
You need to let go of that thought of who you were,
Hmm.
and you're now a new person.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear what has been your experience making those jumps, both of you, because you both have made it. And
Hmm.
I don't know, it's interesting to see how everybody goes through that process.
Go ahead, Nichole. I'll jump in
Man,
later.
I was nodding along with you, Myra, because yeah, I was Nichole from the US government for 15 years, right? And that first of all, I never thought that was going to be me. That wasn't, I kind of stumbled into
We don't
diplomacy
plan for
work.
it.
Yeah, I didn't plan for it. I just knew I wanted to do global communications and something international, and that's how I ended up in public diplomacy. But then transitioning from Nichole from the US government to Nichole from AP Moller Maersk, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, to now being post Maersk after layoffs, because everybody, it's the trendy thing to do these days is to get laid off. So I'm just part of the trend. With everybody else in the world, it seems. But now I'm also rebuilding. What is my identity? Where I'm Nichole,
Yes.
the communications professional, the person who loves, reputation management, crisis management, change management, also a university lecturer trying to help the next generation of professionals understand who they are. So I don't have the answers right now, but I did write down what you just said, that a key part of sort of your process was just deconstructing who you are so that you can construct something after that. And I'm going to be, I think, writing that above my computer screen, I think, for the foreseeable future, because it's really great advice. And I think it applies to all of us, no matter what stage we're in, right? Because we all are going to go through waves in employment,
Yeah.
because God willing, it's a long life and it's a long career. And it's not the same way it used to be, where my father was 36 years in one
Yeah.
company, right? That's
And
just
it's a
not the
good
norm anymore.
thing.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
exciting. So
Yeah.
yeah, so a lot, you gave me so much food for thought, and I'm sure our audience thinks this so as well. But Carlos, I'm also curious to hear your perspective on, the identity, and
Yeah.
moving to new places also changes our identity.
100%. I'll try to be brief because the star here today is Mayra. And but my case was like I had two internships before moving to Denmark. So I worked for the Danish government, and everybody respected me there because I was wearing the Danish government hat. And then I worked for Siemens, which is this German behemoth. And so when I moved to Denmark, I was forced to first I created a blog called denmarkbrazil.com. I was creating content, and that taught me a lot about influence and so on. But I think in the end it's an exercise because I had to find out what could I offer like when I arrived here. So I thought I was the guy who was going to connect Denmark to Brazil, and so I put myself in that narrow box initially because I couldn't find a job. I applied for more than 300 jobs and so on. And eventually, some companies started finding me, and I was like, forget about this job thing. I'm gonna help companies land Brazil. But I had this idea of, well, I'm just this Brazilian guy, this guy who can help companies enter Brazil. But I didn't want to be in that box. I didn't want to, I wanted more. And over time, the scope of my services started expand, and so this is the journey. And I think in my case was more like finding out who I was, and finding out who I was, and I'm still finding out, is more like evolving, expanding my my self-awareness. Like it's evolve is really like this journey of my personal journey, right? So um in the end, I think entrepreneurship is an exercise of is an act of courage, I would say, I would argue,
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
right? Because without courage,
Absolutely.
you're not gonna knock on a certain door, and you're just afraid of
This
asking.
is
And I think
my friendship bracelet. It says courage.
it
That's
is, because
perfect. It's perfect.
it's if you're not courageous in a certain way, and like, we have weird conversations, or great conversations, but in the end it's about talking to people, right? So I think first and foremost is an exercise of courage, and an exercise of looking inwards and trying to understand who you are, and being honest. So but we can do a session about me. This is not about me
This is
today.
a whole session on its own.
Exactly. Uh,
All about
but
courage.
let's speak about the consumerization of diagnostics. And so, yeah, you touched. I think you both touched that consumer. I think there's a lot of influence in terms of social media, and I mean, probably the pandemic as well had a strong influence in, like, we had the vaccines, and wow, we didn't discuss the vaccines, and a lot of discussions there, and like so. Um, Speaking about the consumerization of diagnostics and the opportunity there, Mayra, perhaps you could also tell us, how did you go from, how did you get invited, or how did you see the opportunity? I don't know, how to co-found this business. What, why you said, okay, I'm gonna pursue this, and let's speak about the consumerization of diagnostics and the opportunity there.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I think most of us, and I've heard some of you also say, is that we go through experiences and we find that we want to change that experience. Um, and in my case, coming from finance, marketing, and consumer behavior, when I went through the experience and I wanted to understand more about my personal health, coming from marketing and business, the first thing I saw was the numbers, and the numbers are just so scary. I mean, if you think about it, only 25% of women go to their medical checkup every year, many because there's just not enough specialists in every country. There's none one country, maybe Singapore, that has access to specialists. Um, Women are spending 25% the most of their life in poor health, uh, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I could throw so many of these statistics. And the interesting thing for me was women are 80% of the decision makers in terms of health. So if you think about it, and raise your hand, I cannot see you, but raise your hand if you're a man and your wife or your mother or a woman in your family tells you what doctor to go to, or even brings you your supplements. Carlos, you're gonna say something?
No, it's like my magnesium. I get everything from my wife, like, she's like, hey, take the magnesium and try this. And
That's
I
it.
try. Yeah, I'm like,
I'm
of
take
course.
I'm reminding my partner about our daily multivitamins. I'm with you.
There you go. So on top of the fact that we have more complex health because of the lack of research that we had been carrying for years and years and years, we are also the ones that decide where do we spend our consumer health money. So for me as a marketeer, this was like, oof, yes, big hole, but huge opportunity. And the best part of it is when I met my co-founder, Dr. Kumble, who's a biochemist. We realized that from different points of view, we had gone through very similar experience, and we had the skill set, but especially the technology to do it. And we are at the point of time where, like Nichole was saying, things are shifting. When we started this, nobody wanted to talk to us about menopause, perimenopause. We had investors that told us, convince me that this is a problem. I'm like, dude, this is like a third of a woman's life. It is a problem that we don't speak about it. it's a different thing. And I think that's where we see the tide changing. It's not because the problem is new, it's because we never spoke about it.
My question, not really a question, but something for us to think about. Like, I really wanted women to co-host a session with me today because I know nothing about this. Like the other day,
Me
Lais was
neither.
talking about Lais
Yeah,
was
neither
talking about
we're not taught about it.
menopause, and I'm like, what is that? Yeah, and then we started having a discussion, which was very interesting. And so I think to your point about investors, and I don't know who were you pitching to, like if they have no idea about the problem behind the problem, like they're just going to be looking at numbers, and the conversation ends up being very poor, because then they don't understand what women go about, and then you have to be showing a lot of stats. But I don't know, maybe if there were a couple of women there investing, they would get it quickly and they would say, okay, there's an opportunity here.
Yes.
So does it make sense what I'm saying? It's common sense to me. Like, hello. I
So I
think.
think my connection is a
Yeah.
little bit slow. My connection is a little bit slow. Let's see. I'll turn off the video for a second, just while it catches up. What I will say is bang on. I mean, you would think that it's a very natural thing to think about. The issue is that this type of startups only get about 2% of the investment. And the reason is not because I think a lot more is recognized that there's a huge opportunity. The problem is that the thesis of many of the VCs have been done even 5 years ago. And they're just now trying to catch up with new AI, new tools. AI is changing so much. And on top of that, you have this huge opportunity that very few, that is not AI, it's not a SaaS, because
Mhm.
investing in health can take a project to come out to consumer almost 8 years. So it's not a tennis
Mhm.
shoe, it's not a sneaker.
Mhm.
So we're still in the process where we're trying to understand how to best approach the opportunity from an investment perspective and a risk perspective that we have not done before, because it has not happened before. And that's why fintech is a great example, because we have this very high regulation industry. The thing is that fintech moved very fast in terms of development, because you're not developing tools for life or health.
Mhm.
So that's where the big shift is. So bang on, Carlos. I think there is going to be a huge movement in the next couple of years, and whoever grabs on it well planned, they're going to do well.
Brilliant. Nichole, go ahead.
I'm just sitting here in awe because honestly, I did not think that a conversation like this could be possible, right? And for the reasons that you rightly pointed out, Carlos, like most people don't know what perimenopause is. Maybe they've heard of menopause. Most women don't even know because we're not taught it. We're not. I think globally we are probably very undereducated about something that is a natural part of a woman's life. And I mean, I have a list of books that I need to, buy and check out from the library to even educate myself, even though I'm knocking on perimenopause's door, like it's coming for me. And so having, Mayra and others who are courageous and founding things that are so desperately needed and underfunded, not only by national institutes of health and their research,
Yeah.
because it's I think it's like less than 1% of research goes towards any women's health issue, at least in the United States. That
Yeah,
much I
no,
kind of know.
globally.
Yeah, globally as
Yeah.
well. Oh goodness. So like but there's such a big market, right? That is open and that is ready. And I think the combination of sort of where we are culturally in the global conversation, and thank you to the brave people who have come before us who've been able to start
Yes.
these conversations.
Yes.
It's Hollywood actresses who've
Yes.
been, standing up and saying, yeah, there is life after 50, and yeah, there is a career after 50, and oh, by the way, I went through all these health things. It's, people in healthcare who are bringing this up. I was just watching a couple weeks ago, the Daily Show did a piece with Dr. Claire. I'm looking at her name right now on my screen, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who wrote a book called The New Perimenopause, right? And it's like an evidence-based guide to surviving the zone of chaos, right? And I think any person that's watching this that's even heard of perimenopause or menopause knows that like this is a big issue. So I say all of that to say I'm just pinching myself that we're able to have this conversation. And Mayra, thank you for what you're doing and bringing into this field. And I guess my question is for you is, you know, I have two questions, but I'll start with this one.
Shoot.
What is one conversation that the health tech industry is not having enough of? Like where's the gap?
Right. Well, first of all, before I go to the second question, I just want to highlight something you said. I think these conversations are possible because of spaces like this. So I appreciate very much both of you making this space. Without it, we wouldn't be able to reach people to tell them that there's other things that could be looking at in their journey. And in terms of what are the conversations that need to be had, I think we're there, but I think now we need to walk the next mile, and we need to talk about how do we deliver what we've been talking about for these past couple of years in terms of investment, in terms of getting more people to focus on it. In addition to that, it is a conversation, but I think it needs to be bigger, is that every woman experience it very differently. And every region, I mean, you could be a Mexican in Singapore and you will experience it very different than a Mexican in Mexico. So imagine in those contexts. Because of the weather is different. So if you're having hot flashes and you're in a very hot, humid element, maybe you don't realize you're having hot flashes because your nutrition, lifestyle, in general is so different from region to region. So I think there, plus only 20, I'll put it into context. From all the health data, only 30% has gender. So only 30% we know comes from for women or from women. And out of that 30%, only 20% represents women of color, women, Asian women, and Latino women. So there's a huge opportunity to build those data sets. And this helps. The other thing that we're not saying is that imagine you have a data set and you only have 50% of the information. How do you help 100% of the population? So both halves. So right now we don't know things like why men are more prone to autism, or are women experiencing differently? Why women tend to have more immune disease than men? And because we don't have the data, we cannot help men and women. So I think we need to start talking about how this help us as a whole, as a society. And it's not just a women's health conversation, it's a gender lens conversation for the whole of humanity.
I also wrote that down. This is helping society as a whole. And that's a really great way to pitch it and to showcase it, because it's true. Also, when women are happier, everyone's happier. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Happy wife, happy life. Just
Exactly.
joking, ladies. You know,
There's some truth in it.
100%. Listen, in terms of building trust, in terms of data, Mayra, you're talking about data sets. So, do you think consumers will trust AI-driven health recommendations? I would, but
you shouldn't.
Well, it depends where. It depends where it's coming from. Again, from the
Exactly.
brand, right? And
that's it.
And again, the whole discussion about vaccines, and which I find it super relevant, but depending on the brand, again, it all comes down to Adidas. It comes down to brand, right? So
yes,
or to the
absolutely.
personal brand, like you have a doctor that you
Exactly.
partner with. So
yes, and I think you hit the nail in the head. I think it comes back to reputation. And there's two parts of it. One is how they take care of your data, which is a huge issue right now that is being very highly regulated. There's even a couple of cases the last couple of years in the US that have gone to the FTC, and they had class actions against them because of the transparency of data. So that's one whole conversation that I think needs to be had. And as companies, we need to be very responsible, especially now that there's all these new ways of hacking somebody's data for all sorts of uses. So, I mean, that's a whole conversation on its own. And the other thing is, how do you use that data? In the case, and why I say you shouldn't, my biggest worry as a consumer right now is that if you're giving me health recommendations on a data set of 30% and 20% relevant to me, that basically not even doesn't help me, but it could hurt me, because you have not considered enough women in it. And we know that if some of the LLMs now available, they're actually sexist and racist. We've seen this in the news. So how do you power your data sets and your recommendations to ensure that you're actually serving the population and not hurting the population? I think that's a very important conversation, especially in women's health. So that's one side. And I think that's for the companies to take care of it, because on the downside or upside, depends how you see it, women are so desperate for information that we will try everything. I mean, there's not for nothing that we follow and we try everything that influencers on social media say, because we just need information. There's not good information that we trust, so we try and hear everything we can. So there's a really huge pain point that we need to address. And the ones that we're looking to address it, we just have to be very ethical about how we address it.
On that note, then, can you walk us through your, let's say, go-to-market process today? So you have a device, because having a, like it's quite funny today, nowadays. You're on Instagram, and then all of a sudden you see some quiz, whatever, from supposedly a health tech company, and you do that quiz, and they recommend you something anti-stress and so on. But do you guys have a device, an actual thing that you test your saliva, and then we could argue that that is more credible, so can you walk us through your go-to-market process? You probably have a lot of data today in Hong Kong and in Southeast Asia, and tell us about how do you guys go to
Build
market?
it, use it, yeah.
Yeah, use
So
it, build it, show it.
so the test was originally built in the high performance sport industry, and it is used a lot by big football clubs to support the training of their players, to make sure that they stress enough. That, so I should go back a little bit. So the first test that is available in pharmacies in Hong Kong is a rapid saliva cortisol test. So athletes use it to ensure that when they are training or they have a competition, they stress enough to create that resistance and performance, but they don't stress too much that they could get injured or they can get sick. So they need to be within that curve. And then cortisol increases in the morning, so you can get out of bed, and has to come down at night so you can sleep. So we need to track that curve every day to make sure that you're within the ranges. So based on that technology that is actually created by my partner in London, our scientific partner, what we wanted to do is to make this technology available in mass to anyone. So what we did is we built an app that allows you to read the test at home with just a simple photo of the test. So how it works is that you take a tube, collect the saliva in minutes, put that tube in a solution. The solution separates the hormone from the saliva, because our saliva has a lot of bacteria, so we need to do a chemical process there. Put those drops on a strip. If you think about either a pregnancy test or a COVID test, where we would put drops of this liquid on the strip, you get two lines on the strip, and then you take a photo of the test, and within minutes you'll get a quantitative value of your hormone level. And this is important because a COVID test or a pregnancy test, the only thing you want to know is I have it or I don't have it. With hormones, you want to know how much of that hormone I have. So what our algorithm does is read the lines of the test and then give an absolute value of it. And on the basis of that, we can tell you for this time of day and for your population, you might be on the higher end, or You could be, I'll give you an example. In the morning, if you feel sluggish and your cortisol result is coming out low, there could be simple things that you could do every day, like go walk outside, look at the sunlight instead of looking at our phones first. And that already jumpstarts your day. So that's more or less how it came to be and how it works.
Very cool. Nichole, you have questions?
I want to know how I
Hendrik, I
can
know.
get one of these.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I do have one question, but I think are you opening it up to the group? Feel free to do that, and I can save mine for maybe the end.
No, Hendrik will be joining us as well, but
Okay.
just go ahead and shoot your question now.
Okay, great. Well, I'm thinking a lot about the optimism that we're bringing into this conversation, right? And I'm wondering what gives you optimism about where femtech and preventative healthcare is heading.
Oh, I'm super excited about it because I think that there's a group of there's a growing number of men and women. Because really, I mean, yes, most of us are women because we have the pain point and we want to resolve it. But there's a lot of men in the conversation, and I think that's very important to be said, that are looking to find solutions. And because it's a really hard industry to crack on because of all the barriers in it, you know that they just pour their heart and brain into it, and that there will be products that are going to make a big difference. So I'm very, very excited for the next 10 years.
Me too.
Awesome. Mr. Hendrik. Mr. Hendrik is always very moderate, if I may, but he's one of the top analysts, e-commerce or commerce analysts, and he's sitting out of South Africa, Mayra. So sunny South Africa, I guess, right, Hendrik?
Thanks, Carlos. Yes, it is sunny at the moment, but it will be stormy and it'll most probably be stormy again sometime in the week.
A few
Mayra,
days.
I have a question. The question for me is that you're based in Singapore. From what I know, in Asia, culturally, intimacy and those conversations are, I would even call them taboo. Let's just say we're not going to go there. So how have you gone to market and to build your community around these apps? Obviously, you've got the app stores that you need to like bend and do all the stuff for to get onto people's phones. But how do you get in front of potential female customers saying, by the way, you need to do this because this is coming, as I think Nichole mentioned with that name from the book, from the Daily Show. It's just, how do you communicate to a demographic where this is, I wouldn't say persona non grata, but this is way outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, it's a global situation. I speak to people and they tell me, my country is very conservative. We don't have conversations about this and that and that. And I've spoken to many people in different parts of the world about this and a previous startup that was related to sexual wellness as well. And we all have the same trouble having the conversations. The interesting thing, and to your point, is that because we are all going through it, once you open the door, we all want to talk about it. We want to know that we're not the only ones going through that, those phases and through those problems, and we can relate. Even men, honestly, men have been fantastic in driving the conversation, in asking questions, in being part of it. What has been really challenging is that, and I'm sure you'll have a very good advice on this, is that building a community is very expensive. It's not what it is, what it used to be. So what Carlos, Gustavo, and Evolve, and all of you have built here is really valuable. It's really hard, and it takes a lot of time, which is a lot more valuable than money these days. So what we do is, what we've been very grateful for is opportunities like this, because it allows us to reach a population that, and a group of people that in other situations might never be exposed to this conversation. So spaces like this for us are invaluable to be able to to give our message, and not only because of the product, right? Of course, we all want to make sales, but because we have the opportunity to maybe seeds to people to want to talk and open about the conversation. But any feedback, I will really appreciate it, Hendrik. You're the expert here.
So, Carlos, one, thank you very much for this opportunity. Myra, I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn. I have a few suggestions. Nichole, I'll also reach out to you because I think you might need to communicate to me because I'm always interested in supply chain news. Um, I have to unfortunately bounce because I have a meeting that I'm late to it. But
Come on, man.
it,
This is the
yeah,
time.
but
This plot was made for you. You know. Sorry.
didn't
Just
if
saying.
you if Myra and Nichole needed to know that 2 weeks ago I mentioned that this time basically messes up my calendar, but I just need to say one thing before I go.
Mhm.
Carlos, you and your colleague Gustavo need to be commended for having incredible female speakers coming from all over the world coming to speak to us. We need more of this, so I'm putting the onus on you. Myra and Nichole needs to find more female entrepreneurs to come
Thank
talk
you.
to us
I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. Agree.
because these kinds of things, as I said in my comment, unfortunately the world is run by males, and yes, I know it sucks. We don't have all the answers, but I think for me these 45-minute to an hour conversations provide us context that can help us move the needle along for your business. So, on that note, have a great day. I'm going to be rude and I'm going to jump away now. But, Carlos, as usual, my friend, you and this community just you break my mind. Have a nice day. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Thanks, man.
Hendrik.
Hendrik.
Very nice to meet
Thanks.
you. Talk soon.
I'll connect you guys on WhatsApp. No worries. So my perhaps question then is like, so there's a podcast I listen to. These guys are quite American, the PBD, but they bring some interesting um facts sometimes. So and he was talking about um Costco, right? The
Mm.
American,
Mhm.
and they noticed that Costco recently, the CFO went public and he said, the CFO of Costco just mentioned that people are consuming less beef and they're consuming more chicken or poultry. Is that correct? The
Mhm.
correct
Okay.
term,
Mhm.
poultry? Yes. So I was thinking like, and that was interesting because they could predict some sort of crisis because if
Yeah,
people are consuming less meat, it means that
saving money.
they're saving money, right? And like you mentioned about being not believing in the health tech data and so on, but for you guys, data like that can be quite interesting to create benchmarks also, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and and position yourselves as the go-to in terms of uh, female health or and whatnot. And that's my first, perhaps, just thinking out loud. And the other thing is, you mentioned that you guys started in a high performance environment, testing with a test for athletes. So um, and measuring cortisol and so on. So could I use this device to measure my cortisol because I know that I don't sleep much and it has improved substantially after I started taking magnesium. That like every day I take this 2 pills of there's a specific type of magnesium that I'm taking. But I'm sure that there are small tweaks, that I can do to improve my sleep as well. So just thinking, like could we have your test also just for fun and to measure if my
No,
cortisol is
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So those are really important questions. So I'll answer the second one first. Yes, so the technology actually can be used for any age group and any gender as well. We've even have done work with horses and dogs, by the way, since they cannot tell us how they feel, or at least with the words. Um, and what so yeah, in short, yes, the technology can be used for a very different population. The reason why we chose women is just because it's where we see the biggest pain point, and again, 80% of the decision making. So who knows, maybe one day you go to GNC, or your wife goes to GNC, picks up a box for her, and then sees a box next to it that is for men, and picks
Mhm.
up one for you as well.
Right.
So, and I say this because if any of you are either in health or in wellness, even in Adidas, we would see that we grew the business on the back of improving the women's health offer and marketing.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
this is a fact that can help many business grow as well. So that's why I
Mhm.
think it's a very important question what you asked. And to answer the first question, yes. So we see that there's a lot of companies like Costco or Amazon that have a really good grip on their data to make predictions. I think they're probably one of the better ones. Many other companies might not have that. Uh, the issue is that many companies don't even know what to ask on how to use their data, even if their data is clean, which is another huge problem. You need to have a really clean data sets to be able to ask good questions. What we want to bring to the table is fulfill that gap of the 80% or the very few data of 20% available by telling women that they can opt in sharing their data for research purposes. And I say opt in because it has to be permission based. You need to tell the user what you're going to do with it, and you have to use it for ethical purposes, not something that could create more hardship for them. So what we will enable is opportunity for women to opt in, share the data. We've been building partnerships with research agencies or institutions to use that data to create solutions. And the amazing thing about this technology is that allow us to do it a lot in a bigger scale. Because if
Mhm.
you have to go to the lab, you might go once or twice, even twice per day, but that's it. But if you are able to test at the time that you need to be tested, as often as you need to be tested, then the data sets you can build or crowdsource are a lot larger and a lot more precise. So very important where you're going with these questions.
Mhm. Interesting. Nichole, thank you, Mayra.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Carlos, about trust and
Mhm.
trust in the brand. And so by developing that trust, Myra, in your brand and, I'm sure the outreach to the medical professionals and others that are sort of the trusted names, I see this becoming something that can really gain a lot more traction, right? Because to your point, we need to opt in. And I think that there is probably due to AI and sort of just, this
Yeah,
fear everybody has of the robots taking over,
yeah,
our world is, to what extent should we be sharing this personal information? I know, I'm wearing a wearable right now and I opt in to share certain things, but I haven't fully opted in, but maybe I should, right? Because as a female, that data needs to be there to kind of help with more research. So it's a really good point. And I think a question that I have for you is, what is something that you want those watching or those on the call currently to take from this? And is there an action step that you're hoping people will take, whether it's a conversation with somebody, whether it's, sharing
yeah.
something like how can we help?
Well, I think what you said is exactly it. I think please have those conversations many times because, like we were saying earlier, we were not told about this process. We talked about puberty and fertility, but when you don't know what's going through your body and you cannot communicate it because you were never taught the language to it, it can get very complex. So please have those conversations with your partners, with other people. Be very, very open. I think know that there's many people going through similar stages, so that that would already move the needle. And personally, connect with us if you think we can be of service to you. We will love to, and to you, I mean everyone on the call. We will love to be that for you. And I guess the last thing I would love to ask you before anything happens, you're a communication expert. You use these products like the Aura Ring. You're a decision maker of your data. Would love to hear from you. What do you want to know from us as companies and as a consumer to feel comfortable and to feel like you're receiving something of value? So I know I turned the tables a little bit, but I'm very curious after what you said.
That's a really good one. I think one of the key things I always wonder about, right, is who is behind the company?
Yeah.
What is sort of what is the financial structure, right? Follow the money. We're always taught that no matter what it is. If it has to do with the
Yeah.
news that we're consuming, with, where a product is made, what are sort of the values behind the company or the brand? And so something like that is important to me when I'm making a decision, whether or not to share information or even to sign up for something, right? Even in sort of that marketing funnel. It matters to me what the brand's value is. So I think really keeping that front and center for potential customers and people is really useful. And 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 I haven't poked around the website well enough to know this, but maybe there is a section, that's sort of about the financials or the funding. And to me, transparency is really key. And I'm seeing this also with even the students that I teach. So,
Yeah.
the younger decision makers that are coming up in businesses and in society, they're really focused on transparency and
Yeah.
accountability and the ethics behind brands as well. So those are things that I would look for. And I think based on conversations I've had with my students this past semester, they would be as well.
Thank you. And I think there's two sides of it. On one side is to, go back to your previous question, is I would invite you to go and really research who you as a person are inviting to your home, I would say. A lot of the information of who these companies are out there. So I would invite you to really dig into it. And the other thing is, as companies, I think we have the duty to, if we do say something, we need to stick to it, because
Hmm.
we see a lot more of that flip-flopping these days. So yeah, that's a really, really important point you make there, Nichole.
I agree with you. Not that my point was important, but that it's important that they don't flip flop.
Hmm.
Both.
There's a question from Lais, and it's somehow related to data, which I find it interesting. So I'm gonna show here on stage. So she says, and I've seen it firsthand, and I'm always joking with her because she's a data geek, and somehow I am as well. Like, because we have this what do you call this scale where I can see my body fat, and I, like the problem is you get addicted to it. Like like saying, hey,
It can
like what's
happen.
going on? But amazing. She says, I've been tracking my glucose levels through a continuous monitor, and it changed my life. It really has. It's impressive. I can't imagine how much my health will improve tracking hormones. Is it possible to track cortisol, and what else? How can I get
Yes,
hold of this, please?
yes. So I'll start by saying that we have over 30 different hormones in our body.
Hmm.
Even vitamin D can be considered a hormone, and they all act in cocktail, or like an orchestra, I like to
Hmm.
say. So if one of them goes off track, very likely others will start misfiring. And glucose monitors are a really good example, because very often you see the result of cortisol levels moving glucose monitors. So that's why they're a really good benchmark. And the other thing is that we once, and I agree with you, once we see what's inside of our body, we have a better understanding of how to manage our daily habits. So to answer your question, right now we have cortisol available for sale in Hong Kong, and we're working right now in expansion to Japan. It's going to be very likely in a couple of months. Singapore as well, other cities in Asia, and we are looking into Mexico probably by the end of the year as well. The goal is to have by next year a whole panel of hormones different hormones, I should say, also need to be measured in different medium. So cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, LH, and FSH, they can be measured in saliva. So those are the ones that we will have by next year. And very likely, and then there's other hormones that we could look into, but a lot of them also need to be in blood. So we're balancing the accessibility part of it. What else in the question? I think that answers all the three questions. Is it?
Brilliant, it does. Which other hormones you could measure and how she can get hold of this.
Yes. Right now we don't have it in other countries, but if you reach out to me, we can figure out a way.
All right, we'll do. We'll that's not the best English word, smuggle in. No.
We would find a way.
Find a way. Thank you. And I said that. Okay, just so.
One of my former mayor's colleagues used to say, trade like water finds a way. So
exactly.
Trade will find its way. Don't you worry.
Excellent. You see, nothing like the natives speaking. All right. I have a final question because we also have board level leaders in the community. And the question is, what are boards still underestimating about preventive health? And yeah. That's the question.
So I'll give you another statistic. It is estimated that $150 billion are lost because of menopause and perimenopause. And if you think that probably almost half of your workforce are women in this age group, you have a huge opportunity. And I mean, like Nichole was saying, we do so much even when we are not feeling good. Imagine what we could achieve if we're in the best performance. Think of athletes, a Messi, a Ronaldo. They do so much because they are being monitored to performance. So imagine we could achieve with our workforce and our collaborators if we give them the tools to track or to find solutions to what they're aching and give them tools to improve their performance.
That's brilliant. And I mean, this is such a cool topic because there's so much tied to hormones. And if you can start understanding like why you may have some sort of imbalance, then you figured, well, I may be feeling more blue, more depressed and whatnot, So I think there's so much that, I mean, this is a field that is fascinating. I will connect you with another guy. He's called Hardy. He's in the, how can I say, also in the healthcare space, doing what do you call mushroom treatments, but it's very serious companies. It's amazing. So I'll connect you with him because he's doing a lot of investments and looking for partnerships in the community. So yeah, Mayra, this was really amazing. Lovely to have you in Evolve. And Laura, she joined in. She couldn't ask a question, but you guys are gonna talk in private after. And yeah, if people want to know more about you, we want to support you also on spreading your mission. But what's the best way to find out for anyone who's not part of Evolve? Find out about you for partnerships and so on.
Yes, we'd love to. I'm sure there's many ways we can collaborate. And I really am a believer that collaborations is the basis of growth for everyone, personal and commercially. So I can leave my LinkedIn. Please send me a message, or you can share it if you want, Carlos. And please connect with me. Drop me a message. We'll love to. Even advice that you might have, we'll love to hear it.
We'll do that. You should consider having a podcast, in my opinion. Like, to start, it takes time, but once
it's a lot of work, Carlos. I respect the work you guys do. It's a lot of work.
No, it is. But I think just maybe the conversations you and your partner, you guys have, and maybe using some, like the conversations you have with prospects and turning that into content with the LLMs, you can save the transcripts. And at least I think it's needed what you're doing. So just
we can
an
talk,
idea.
Mayra.
Like you
Thank
should,
you. Thank you
you
for the
could,
We
you
space.
can
could. I
talk
mean,
about
it's
that, or
yeah.
ways to take what you're already doing and give it
Hmm.
even more legs. That's kind of my sweet spot, right? With
Oh, I
strategic
love that.
communication. So yeah, I'll definitely connect with you later on that.
Do
And
And I
this is
agree,
connect.
she does have a
exactly
great
what
voice and a great face for podcasting. So
Oh, thank you.
we'll just get her on the Daily Show, okay?
But this is very important what you're saying, because this is exactly what I meant earlier when I was jumping into this and I had no idea about all the legal aspects of fundraising and all of that. Somebody gave me the advice. You don't need to know everything. You need to find the right people to work with
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
that can complement the skill sets that you already have. And I think as an entrepreneur, we try to do too much, and that's a message I would love to tell other entrepreneurs if they're in the call is you don't have to do everything. You need to find the right partnerships, and
Hmm.
spaces like this are perfect for that.
Great. Mayra, thank you so much. Nichole, great to have you with me,
Thanks,
with
Thank you
us
Mayra.
both.
today. Amazing. This was fantastic. All right.
Thank you for the space. Nice to see you.
Sure thing. Thanks.
Thank you.